What is going on, Pats Nation? It's Patriots Global here, back with another video, and in this one, we are going to be talking about 3 free agent tight ends that the New England Patriots should target in the upcoming 2021 NFL free agency, which will take place starting at 4 p.m. on March 17th. Now, I do want to say that the guys I have here are not lower tier guys. These are guys that you plug in and you know are going to make a difference. Guys that you plug in, you know are going to be your number one starting tight end. So if you guys would like to see, a video on a few lower budget tight ends the Patriots could target, let me know in the comment section below. But these 3 guys are guys that for sure would make a difference. Now, the Saints actually just went ahead and released my first guy on this list, and that is going to be tight end Jared Cook. I've liked Jared Cook for a while. Jared Cook is one of my, I would say, top 5 favorite tight ends in the league. And this one also makes sense because the Patriots previously had interest in him. This was right before the start of the 2019 season. We all know before Rob Gronkowski retired, he took a very good time at finally telling the Patriots he wanted to retire. So New England was kind of taken as a shock and at surprise. And it was very last minute into the offseason, so the Patriots didn't have much options to replace Gronk. Jared Cook was still on the market. The Patriots last minute tried to get negotiations started with him, but by then, he had already signed on with the New Orleans Saints, so it was a little too late for New England. Luckily enough for the Patriots, Jared Cook was one of the players that the Saints just had to cut. It wasn't because they didn't want him, they didn't want to keep him on the team. They just had to because they are, I believe, $80 million against the cap right now. Now, Jared Cook is a veteran in the league. He was a 3rd-round pick back in the 2009 NFL draft, and he signed a 2-year, $15 million deal with the Saints in 2019. During his first season in New Orleans, Cook made his 2nd consecutive Pro Bowl after catching 43 of 65 targets for 705 yards and 9 touchdowns. Last season, he caught 37 of 60 targets for 504 yards and 7 touchdowns. He finished as the team's 3rd leading receiver behind Alvin Kamara and Emmanuel Sanders. It is worth noting quickly that the Saints actually released 2 tight ends. Now, Jared Cook was set to become a free agent on March 17th, so releasing him was kind of weird. The only thing that's different now is the fact that teams can actually go ahead and sign him now rather than waiting till March 17th. Plugging in Jared Cook, he would day one become an immediate starter for this team. He becomes your number 1 overall tight end. He's pretty good at blocking, definitely helps the Patriots out as a receiver, and they get that veteran at the tight end position. He's 33, so he's definitely getting up there in age. Doesn't have too much longer in the NFL, so I would probably expect a 1 to 2 year deal if they signed him. But at 6'5", 248 pounds, a mismatch nightmare, and a guy that you can plug up, runs through the middle of the seams, a vertical threat, and again would be the closest thing to a Rob Gronkowski since Rob Gronkowski. I also think that someone like Jared Cook would just be an excellent mentor for a young Devin Asiasi and Dalton Keene. He's also another guy that is a mismatch nightmare in the end zone. This guy is a red zone threat. In 2020, he caught 7 touchdowns. In 2019, he caught 9 touchdowns. The year before that, 2018, caught 6 touchdowns and always puts up very respectable numbers. Again, 504 yards this past season was one of the more lower numbers in his career. 705 yards in 2019, 896 yards in 2018. And he's someone that moves the chains tremendously. He has never averaged, except his rookie year, which I usually don't take too much into account, less than 11.9 yards on the season. 2020, he had 13.6 yards per reception, 16.4 yards per reception in 2019, 13.2 yards per reception in 2018. He's someone that I believe the Patriots could get probably for $7 to $8 million a year. Now, next up on my list is definitely a fan favorite throughout New England, and that's Jonnu Smith. We've been hearing Jonnu Smith's name really all offseason for the Patriots. Originally, he was a 6th-round pick by the Tennessee Titans in the 2017 draft. Coming off that rookie contract, he is going to be a much, much younger player than, a Jared Cook or even a Hunter Henry, I believe, for that matter. He's only 25 years old. He has so much more time to develop in the league. If the Patriots wanted to get a long-term deal done with a tight end, Jonnu Smith would be a perfect candidate for that aspect. He also brings a decent height. He would help as a tall receiver, some mismatch, but he isn't going to be a Jared Cook, Rob Gronkowski, nothing like that. 6'3". So again, he'll still help create some mismatch. He is a big target still, 248 pounds, but he's not going to bring that 6'6" height that I think a lot of us here like. Now, in 4 seasons, Smith has 114 catches for 1,302 yards with 16 touchdowns. Again, that is in 4 seasons. He also added 6 carries for 82 yards with a touchdown, so he brings that ability to play some H-back also. A lot of versatility with him. I think that's what Belichick essentially would love about him. Stats actually do show that Jonnu Smith is a bit better of an athlete than Hunter Henry, although Hunter Henry so far in his career has had a little bit of a better career, but he is a little bit slower of a tight end. Hunter Henry is what I mean by that. And is coming off of, or not coming off of, but in 2018, Hunter Henry also had a torn ACL. Hunter Henry also is going to be the highest paid tight end. He's the best tight end on the open market, or at least that's what's being considered, and that's why you will not see Hunter Henry on this list. Now, as a blocker, Jonnu Smith is not bad, but PFF definitely did grade Hunter Henry as a bit of a better blocker. Although he might not be as good of a blocker as Hunter Henry, Jonnu Smith is super, super competitive in his game, and I think that's something Belichick would love to see, is the fact that he just does not give up, even if he isn't the best blocker in the NFL. Belichick was actually asked about Jonnu Smith just a couple of seasons ago, and he had nothing but praise for Jonnu Smith. This is what he said. He said, he's just a really good tight end. He can do a lot of things. Blocks well, runs well, is a good receiver. I mean, hell, they played him at tailback. He looked pretty good back there, so he's a very athletic player, hard to tackle, catches the ball well. He's great after the catch, probably the best in the league. I mean, I can't imagine anybody better than him after the catch. Now, he looks like a tight end to me, and a good one. Now, Jonnu Smith has always put up fair numbers with Tennessee. I do believe that with a good quarterback in the right scheme, with the right franchise, he could put up even better stats. In 2020, he played in 15 games, starting in just 14 of them. He was targeted 65 times with 41 receptions for 448 yards, averaging 10.9 yards per reception, along with 8 touchdowns. In 2019, he appeared in all 16 games, again, only started in 14 of them, 44 targets, 35 receptions, 439 yards, 12.5 yards per reception, 3 touchdowns. Then in 2018, his sophomore year, he appeared in 13 games, 12 starts, 30 targets, 20 receptions, 258 yards, 12.9 yards per reception, and 3 touchdowns. So those numbers might not sound too flashy, but again, I definitely believe that with the right team, the way that a certain team could utilize him would definitely make those stats go up. It just all depends on what team is he going to go to, what is their quarterback situation. I think that Belichick would love him because of that versatility. Belichick has praised him before, especially for the fact that he's hard to tackle, especially after you get the ball in his hands. And I think that's something the Patriots could really use more in their receivers, is a guy who you can get the ball to, and whether it's 20-yard catch down the field or it's just a simple 5-yard dump off, he can turn that 5-yard dump off into a 20-yard gain, or that 20-yard reception into a 30-yard gain, because he has such great ability to shut off blocks and get more yardage. Now, he's a guy that, again, could get a longer deal with the Patriots, more than 2 years than I said, 1 to 2 years than I said with Jared Cook. The Patriots, if they wanted to sign him, could easily sign him to a 3 to 4 year deal because he is that young, and He is considered, I've heard, anywhere from the second to third best tight end on the market, with Jared Cook kind of being added as of late. I've heard he kind of got knocked down to third. He's someone who also can make anywhere, I'm hearing, between 7 to about 9 million per year. And lastly on my list here, probably another guy's name that you've heard, but I feel like I haven't heard him talked about enough, and that is the Rams tight end in Gerald Everett. Now, he was drafted the same year as Jonnu Smith, so he is coming off of that rookie contract. He was a second-round pick back in the 2017 draft. If the Patriots want to get young, Gerald Everett would be another option that they could go in order to get that. He's 1 year older than Jonnu Smith, 26. Best years are ahead of him still, and he definitely has molding still left in him. You know, if Belichick wants to get a young guy that he can still develop and get signed long-term, Gerald Everett could be another option. Now, I will say with Gerald Everett, it's kind of like the same thing with Jonnu Smith. You're not going to get that Rob Gronkowski, Jared Cook height that, again, I think we all would love. 6'3", 240 pounds. He's not going to bring, again, that height that I think we all desire, but he is still a fairly well-built and tall and still a mismatch situation for the New England Patriots in the middle of the field or someone they could send out wide to the right or left. Now, last season, he caught a career high of 41 passes for 417 yards, again, just this past season. He doesn't have the same recognition, again, as most of these guys that we've talked about, a Hunter Henry, a Jonnu Smith, a Jared Cook, but he is still a very athletic tight end who has been playing more of a backup role for the Rams the past few years, so that is probably why you haven't heard his name as much and why his stats aren't up there as much as I'm sure a lot of people would expect. He's flashed that playmaking ability several times throughout his career so far with the Rams, but he did struggle a little bit with drops in 2020. He still has a lot of potential. He is someone who, like I mentioned earlier, very young. He still has some raw potential that Belichick could develop. With the right team, he could really excel, and I think the Patriots could be one of those teams. Let's remember that if any of these guys go to the Patriots, they're immediately the number one tight end. They'd be going into the best situation possible because the Patriots are at the worst position out of all 32 teams when it comes to the tight end position. I think that Gerald Everett is a very good all-around tight end. He has the ability to be a receiver. He has the ability to block. He's not as good of a blocker as Hunter Henry, but if we're talking about an all-around tight end, I would definitely say that Gerald Everett is one of the best. Now, real quick, just to repeat those stats that he had in 2020 this past season, he appeared in all 16 games, only started in 7 of them. He was targeted 62 times, 41 receptions, 417 yards, 10.2 yards per reception, 1 touchdown. 2019, appears in only 13 games, starts in just 2. 60 receptions, 60 targets, 37 receptions, 408 yards, 11 yards per reception, 2 touchdowns. 2018, the year they went to the Super Bowl, he appears in all 16 games but does not start in a single one. He was targeted 50 times, 33 receptions, 320 yards, 9.7 yards per reception, 3 touchdowns. Now, I liked a lot what I saw in 2017, his rookie year, appears in all 16 games, starts in 2 of them surprisingly. He was targeted 32 times, 16 receptions, 244 yards, averages 15.3 yards per reception, and 2 touchdowns. So not as much of a mismatch tight end as I would say all these other guys are that I've talked about, and he isn't as much of a red zone threat as much as all these other guys that I've talked about. But because he also isn't a top 3 tight end in this market, the Patriots could get him signed for, again, 4 to 5 years. Very, very young. Has a lot of time to develop if the Patriots really want that. He's been in the league for about 4 years, so he knows what he's doing. I could see Belichick getting him for $5 to $6 million a year. And last up on this list is going to be a guy we already talked about, which is why I decided to put him a little bit more so towards the end of this list. If you guys want to know all my thoughts on him, because I'm not going to just completely repeat myself, I made an entire video just on Kyle Rudolph, his interest in playing with the Patriots. So you want to know more about him, go check it out. Kyle Rudolph, though, 31 years old. He's still pretty young, has a few good years left in him. The Patriots could sign him for, 3 years. possibly 4, but that might be pushing it. I'd be okay with more so 3. He's been selected to 2 Pro Bowls. He would bring the height that the Patriots want at 6'6", a complete tight end mismatch for the Patriots, whether they want to send him in the middle, a vertical threat, they want to send him wide right. And the best thing about Kyle Rudolph is that right when he was released, he had expressed interest in specifically playing for the New England Patriots. So I truly believe that if New England does offer Kyle Rudolph a contract, that really could be Kyle Rudolph's #1 destination. It sounds like he wants to play for the Patriots. The Patriots had trade interest in him a few years ago before the Vikings gave him a contract extension. This one really does just make a ton of sense. And the Patriots could potentially get him on a pretty nice contract, okay? Because we do know that there are several other tight ends on the market. The tight end market is heating up very, very nicely this free agency. And he isn't going to be the #1 guy, #2 guy. I wouldn't even say he's the #3 guy. In 2020, like I said, he had a pretty down year. He was ranked 40th in the league by PFF in targets with just 35 of them. He ranked T-32nd, so he was tied for 32nd with 28 receptions. He was 31st in the league in receiving yards at the tight end position with 334, and was tied for 34th in receiving touchdowns with 1. To me, this isn't him taking a step back, though. Honestly, I feel bad for Kyle Rudolph just because he's been a guy who has not excelled too well with the Vikings over the last few years, more specifically because of their quarterback at hand in Kirk Cousins. Some guys have excelled well with Kirk Cousins, some guys have not. Kyle Rudolph, definitely a guy who hasn't, not to mention that a couple years ago they drafted a tight end. I believe it was the first round, could be the second though, in Irv Smith. But he's always been a guy that has been a mismatch situation. He's a guy that has excelled as more of a pass-catching tight end and would help the Patriots out significantly in the red zone. In 2019, he had 6 touchdowns. He had 4 touchdowns in 2018. He had 8 touchdowns in 2017 and 7 touchdowns in 2016. In 2016, he also had 840 yards. He had 634 yards in 2018. 2020 wasn't too impressive. As a stat sheet in total, he only played 12 games, started in all of those, 37 targets though, 28 receptions, 334 yards, 11.9 yards per reception, and again, just that lone touchdown, which was the least amount of touchdowns he's caught in a single season in his entire career. Before we end this one off, though, I want to talk about my boys over at betonline.ag. Now, BetOnline has the fastest and easiest ways to bet on all of your sports action. Football might be over, but the NBA, college basketball, and NHL are a full swing. BetOnline even covers awards, TV shows, and reality TV. Real-time, updated odds and props on almost anything you can imagine. And BetOnline has you covered for all of the news, scores, and odds, and it is the best way to place your bets, and it's free to sign up. All you guys got to do is head to the website or use your mobile device and sign up today to receive your 50% off welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, y'all, your online sportsbook experts. Don't sit on the sidelines anymore. Get in with the action. Don't forget to use that promo code CLNS50 to receive a 50% off welcome bonus on your first deposit. But y'all, that is 4 tight ends that the Patriots could sign right now. Free agency, they don't got to trade, anything like that. We're ranked 4th right now in available cap space that easily could go up. I expect the Patriots to find a true #1 tight end that can help this team out significantly. And these are 4 guys at the top of my list. What are your thoughts on them, though? Let me know in the comment section below. Remember to give this video a big, big thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel for all of your New England Patriots news with free agency and the draft right around the bend. You guys are not going to want to miss any videos. Like always, I appreciate you guys for watching, and I'll catch you in my next video.
In Astro World.